There are artists who make beautiful things, and then there are artists who carry an entire world inside them and somehow impossibly invite the rest of us in. From the moment you hear Tammie Knight speak, you understand that her work isn't just about miniatures. It's about memory, devotion, identity, and the quiet, steady belief that beauty belongs to everyone. You can trace it all back to a little girl wandering museum halls in New York City, trying to get herself locked inside just to stay a little bit longer with the dollhouses she loved. That kind of wonder doesn't fade. It deepens, it roots itself, it becomes a life. What leaves me in awe of Tammie isn't just her extraordinary attention to detail, though her work is so precise and so layered. It feels like stepping into another reality. It's the way her life and art have grown together, side by side. A woman who could hold her own in high-powered corporate rooms, shaping billion-dollar trajectories by day, and then come home and build entire worlds by hand, piece by piece, heart first. That duality alone is breathtaking. But even more than that, it's Tammie's why. She creates with intention, with reverence, with a deep understanding that art has the power to affirm, to include, to tell stories that might otherwise go unseen. Whether she's building a tiny gallery that challenges who belongs in sacred art spaces, or crafting a deeply personal commission that becomes a family heirloom, there is always meaning stitched into every corner. And maybe that's the magic of Tammie's work. Yes, it's small, but nothing about it feels small. It feels expansive, generous, alive. You don't just look at what she makes, you feel it. And in a world that often rushes past the quiet, intricate things, Tammie Knight reminds us to slow down, lean in, and remember what it feels like to be completely, utterly captivated. Hello, Tammie. How are you?
Well, Lara, thank you so much for having me. I'm very
I am
excited.
so pleased. I'm excited too. I'm so pleased to have you. So we're just going to jump right in because that's my favorite thing to do. Tell me about little Tammie. Did
Oh
she
gosh.
like miniatures?
Little Tammie was obsessed with miniatures. She didn't just like them, I loved them. I first discovered miniatures thanks to my mom. One of her favorite museums was the Museum of the City of New York. And on the third floor, they had, I don't know if they still do dollhouses and miniatures. And she would take me, and I just lost my mind. In fact, she told me a story that I tried to get locked in. Being a kid, not realizing that if I got locked in, it would be dark and it would be scary. But I wanted to stay with the dollhouses. So I was kind of hiding from her. I was around 8.5 or 9 years old. So little Tammie loved dollhouses, loved miniatures, and had a dollhouse and would cut fabric that my mother would give me from an old pillowcase or an old tablecloth to make my own bedding. I made my own wallpaper. I made my own flooring. It was a big thing for me. Yeah.
Wow, so you like from the get-go, this
Oh
was your
yeah.
thing. That's
Yeah.
so interesting to me. I mean, the fact that you were doing interior design with it at that young of an age, that's really something.
And it's funny, I didn't think of it as that, but that's exactly what it was, right? I was designing my own spaces and making things that I couldn't find or couldn't get. So yeah, it was
Did
cool.
you do interior design stuff in your room too? Like in your
Oh
big
yes.
person version? Yeah.
Yes, my bedroom had it was designer. I had some Laura Ashley stuff. I had some pillowcases that I made that were pseudo Laura Ashley. I had prints on the walls. I kind of decorated my space. I sort of had that feel, that vibe.
Laura Ashley was my wedding dress. She was going out of
Oh,
yeah,
oh
she was going
wow.
out of business and I got it half price. It was beautiful. Isn't that such an 80s, like
I
early
know,
mid
very
90s?
80s, but no, no, no. But
Good.
good for
She had
you.
beautiful patterns. I
I
loved Laura
agree.
Ashley.
I agree.
So I want to talk about your mom because I mean, both your parents were fabulous, but your mom did this thing for you that talk about accessibility and living in New York City. I just love that whole thing because it really formed who you are as a creative person.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about mom. One of my favorite people in the world to talk about, so close to my heart. It's been 5 years. I still miss her so much, but
Mm.
my mother was exceptional, and I really do mean that. I think she always wanted us to know. Well, first of all, my mom had. I'm the youngest of three girls, so my mother had three daughters, and we always joked that you have a special mother when she has three daughters, and each of you think you're her favorite. But my mother had this way of really honoring each of us. Like one of my sisters loved to sing and wanted to learn how to play the guitar. So got her a guitar, got her lessons. My older sister wanted to sew, so got her a sewing machine, would do sewing lessons with her. And my thing was art. I wanted to go to museums and I was the family artist. I started painting and sketching and drawing at a very young age. And my dad always got me, art supplies. That was always a gift as part of Christmas or my birthday. But my mom was the one that said, well, okay, if you really want to do this, we're going to start doing it in a big way. So we would go, I would say at least once a month to a museum in the city, the Met, the Guggenheim, the Whitney. I mean, you're very lucky, right? When you grow up in a city that has some of the finest culture and art and museums in the world. And she gave us the message pretty early that, I didn't grow up with wealth. We didn't grow up with money, but the city was ours. And she would say that. She said, "This is our city. This is your city. And it shouldn't be a barrier. It should not be that because you don't have wealth or a certain amount of income or certain economic status, socioeconomic status, that you don't get to experience the city and you don't get to experience the culture and the richness of it. So maybe you don't get to go to Rockefeller Center and sit in the front row of something, but you get to go. You get to have the experience." And I thought, how cool is that? So we were always going. We were going to street fairs and museums, and some museums had programming that my mother loved. So the Brooklyn Museum had a lot of programming for kids. So the Kids Museum at the Brooklyn Museum had lots of, painting and hands-on things. And we would go. And sometimes the weather would be terrible. And my dad had the car on the weekends. My mother didn't drive. So my sisters and I, my mother would be like, "All right, girls, get your boots." And that would mean a bus ride, a train ride, and a 5-block walk. It would take us some time, an
You didn't
hour,
mind.
20 minutes to get there. And it was funny because I think we appreciated, even as kids, that it was kind of cool that we had the mom that wanted to do that stuff. But I can remember some of my best experiences of museums were with my mother. I remember her reaction to Jackson Pollock's Rhythm, which is one of my absolute favorite paintings in the world. It's at the Met. And my mother was not impressed because she didn't like modern art. So I think the first time I saw it, I was like 14, and I got really close to it. And I could see this security person like daring me, like, "Don't cross that line." But I just thought it was such an incredible, so much pattern and texture. It kind of blew my mind. So I really wanted to look. And, and my mother, as I walked away, and I said, "What do you think?" And she said, "I think you could probably do something like that."
Right? I love that. I could have done that. I always say to my husband, but you didn't.
It's really awesome.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
So she liked classic art. Like,
she did. She and I
yeah.
loved going through the American Wing, and John Singer Sargent was so close to our hearts. And there was so many painters that she loved, American painters that she loved.
What a gift your mom did for you.
She really
I
did.
mean, just amazing.
And she extended such grace. I have to tell you, I hadn't shared this with you. We went to the Frick. And the Frick has been a New York institution. It's been around for a long time, and it's moved. I think it moved in the last few years, but very, what's the word for it? Very stodgy, very traditional. Not too many people of color would walk through the Frick. So I went, and I think I was either a senior in high school or a freshman at Parsons. To be honest, I don't remember what, but I was looking specifically for the exhibition that was there at the time. And as we walked through, there was definitely a vibe that wasn't welcoming. And at one
Mm.
point, when we stopped and we were in an area, a couple of people were staring at us, and not in a kind way. And my mother looked at them, and maybe she thought I noticed them more than I did. And she looked at me and she whispered, "It's okay. We belong here as much as they do. Let's keep going." And she was just a woman of grace. And I will tell you, I thought about that recently because, frankly, my daughter and I are very close. And I think if I had that experience now, I don't know if I would be such a lady. I don't know if I would hold my tongue and be in grace. I'd like to think that I would be, but I was like, wow, I thought about that. And I thought she was extraordinary. And she taught me to love who I am, love being a person of color, love being female, love being a creative person. My mom was big on that. She's like, "You're an artist. You're so fortunate." And I always carried that. And that in big part is because of my mother.
Oh, man. And she got to see what you did with it, which is
Yeah.
pretty great,
She saw a lot of it. Yeah,
Yeah. So you originally went to Parsons
I
and
did.
you wanted to study design, correct?
Correct.
So tell us about just all the classes you took there and what you were kind of, jumping around, just deciding what you want to do, culminating with an amazing message from a really important professor.
Yeah. Yeah. So Parsons was incredible. And I would do it again 10 times over. And even now I think, how did we do it? How did we, and at the time, I had a full plate of classes. I had 7 classes. I had 3 labs. I had 2 part-time jobs. So for the first 2 years, I actually never had a day off. I mean, I would have half a day off, but I would never have a full day off because on the weekends I worked part-time at, believe it or not, a dollhouse shop on Madison Avenue.
Shocking.
I did and I forced them to hire me. They weren't even hiring, and I kept saying, "You should hire me. I love miniatures." I eventually wore them down, and they hired me. But I also worked as a framer for a woman, Marguerite Phillips Galleries, and she did museum quality custom framing. So
Oh,
often on Sundays, I would work, even though the shops were closed. I would go because that's when I would do some of the work that we wanted to have for a client the next week. But Parsons was intense. And at the very beginning, they let you know your portfolio earned you a place here. Now you have to prove that you belong here. You have to earn the right to stay here. And they were making no bones about it. And we joked that it's like they were trying to get us to quit. They wanted to see who had the grit to stick with it because besides the full class load, we were encouraged, and some professors kind of demanded that we go to museums and galleries all the time as part of our art education. You're in New York, so you go to the museum so you can learn the history and know the collections and have a respect for that institution. And you go to galleries to support local artists, artists that maybe came before you, but they have work in, and Soho was like in our backyard. So we went all the time. And it was a lot. Classes were amazing. So your first year, you take, and I was trying to remember, and I don't remember if it was 9 or 10, but you take a different major it was like every 5 or 6 weeks or every 3 or 4 weeks to sort of get a taste for what you like. So we were taking jewelry making and industrial design and sculpture and painting and photography. And you take all these majors and then you switch to the next one. And it's intense. It's very rapid fire. And the professors are,
You think this
I
program is
I
still like
actually don't
that?
know. I would be surprised if they changed it completely because in a way, it's a very good way to know what you like, right? So even if you know that you're an artist, and I, like I said, I used to draw, I used to paint. I have little pads hidden away of my sketching, which is odd because I don't sketch anymore, but I did as a younger person. And I think if you go through courses and you actually get to have a hands-on experience with them, you learn what you like and what you don't like. And I knew very quickly that I didn't want to go into jewelry making, that I didn't want to go into industrial design, that I didn't want to do oil painting. I knew all those things, but I knew them very clearly because of the courses that we took.
That's really a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think it was. It was magical though. It was when we weren't, chasing down everything that we had to do to get our projects done. We were loving the village. So we were right by Washington Square Park. So we would go there on our breaks. We'd go into, I mean, the village was like, it was like our campus. So I spent a lot of time in the village.
You got everything.
Yeah.
So what was the official major on your diploma?
Ah,
What did it
um,
say?
it's funny. They called it at the time communication design. It's graphic design, but it was called communication design.
Interesting.
And I took enough illustration courses that I didn't really minor in illustration, but it was right up there because at the time I loved illustration and art history was a major love. So my minor was art history. So graphic design, yes. And frankly, I learned very quickly that I didn't really want to do that just by applying to some internships in the city and finding it to be, Madison Avenue advertising felt a
Hmm.
little cutthroat to me, felt like not the place that I wanted to play. Miniatures were always the
Yeah.
place that I wanted to play. And that theme continued. I'd have projects and the projects that I was most passionate about were the ones that somehow involved miniatures. And one of my professors, I think it was Don Blaueis, advertising, and he joked. He said, "You're always going to work those miniatures in, aren't you, Miss McKinnon?" And I said, "Yeah, I
Yes, I
really
am.
am.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
let's just name it and claim it. I'm going to work them in."
So tell us about your room, your dorm room. Did you not?
Right. Yeah.
That's a great one.
So that was I decided if I'm going to impress them, right? Because the miniatures were always showing up somehow, I needed to do something that was a little over the top. So I spent about 5 months my senior year, and believe me, you're not as busy as you are the years before, but you're busy because you're interviewing and you're getting together your final portfolio. So it was a busy time, and I was working my part-time jobs, two of them, and I wanted to make a scale model of my space, of my room. So I did one full side. The other side had a futon bed, things that I didn't show, but my art table, my TV, my Parsons poster, all of my messiness. And I thought it's going to be fun to have it be real, not make a pristine version of it, but make a messy Tammie at 2021 space of it. So down to my bowl of Raisin Bran, my art box that always had paintbrushes and stuff on the floor, my art books that were everywhere because I was getting ready to figure out which ones I wanted to box up to keep, which ones I was going to try to sell to the Strand. Like I had a whole plan going and I was recreating it. And I'm bummed, Laura, because I took
Why?
photos and about 5 years in, I lost the photos. I
Oh
wanted to show
no.
people that the space was really my space.
Oh,
So
well,
I
we
did.
get to see the miniature version still. It's cool. I've seen it. I'm going to show it here. Actually, if you're listening on Apple, you got to go to YouTube because I'm going to show all of Tammie's arts. Yeah, it's a pretty incredible. I mean, I could see how it took you 5 months.
Yeah, no, it was down the rabbit hole intense, but wonderful. And still one of my favorite things that I've ever made. And my kids love it. And when people come over, it's a conversation piece. It's like, I feel like it's part of me in a way that it tells my story because it tells the story of me many, many years ago.
Mm.
We don't have to say how many, but many decades ago. It
Well,
tells,
it was a catalyst for someone really important to kind of give you a message for your future.
yeah, yeah. So So I think I had mentioned this in a conversation we had prior to this wonderful podcast that part of what you're required to do as a senior at Parsons is you have a senior show. So you would choose 7 to 9, I think 7 was the sweet spot of your best pieces, usually stuff that you did in your junior and senior year, and it would be part of your portfolio that you're showing. And you're showing it to public, but then of course there's always the professors and the staff that see it and your peers and your friends and family, and then it's open to the public. And I will admit, I was a decent designer. I was an amazing designer. My best friend, Elizabeth Backus, to me, is it's like the goddess of design, has always been more talented in the design that space than I have. But the miniatures were my thing, right? And I had them displayed, including these menus that I cannot find, and I'm still searching for the photos of them, that I did mock-ups of menus for Tavern on the Green because I wanted to pitch the idea of a menu that was a miniature that the menu would sit into. And they loved it, but they didn't want to do it because they didn't want to spend the money and have it be something. I think the GM said, well, those are just going to walk out the door.
Those are souvenirs. Tavern on the Green
Yeah.
souvenirs.
So we're not doing that. Good idea. We're not doing that, is what they said.
Yeah.
But so I had my stuff laid out, and about 3 of the projects were miniatures. And again, decent designer. And frankly, some of my professors said that. They said, yeah, you're a good designer. No one said you're a great designer. And Henry Wolf is walking through, and you're nervous because it was Henry Wolf. It's like, my God. And you're standing there with your stuff and trying not to look like a dork, but just like, yeah, this is fun. And he's walking around surveying everyone's stuff, and he kind of looks at my things, and he starts to walk away, and he walks back, and he looks at the miniature room. And I still remember, I'm getting I'm getting goosebumps. He looked at it, and he looked, and he got really close, and he looked back, and he went, and a wow from Henry is like, and he said, "That's your passion. Do that." And I was like, and he smiled, and he kept going, and I was like,
Did the sky open up and oh, the angels
it really
sing?
did. No, it really did. I kept thinking to myself, no matter what else I do, no matter what I do for a living, even if I'm not able to make a living as an artist, miniatures will always be part of what I do. And that was like the validation that it's something that I should do because he saw that. And miniatures were not his thing. And I think I said this to you before, there's something magical and special about that space that even if people have a specific genre or type of art that they like or don't like, I have never met a person that doesn't like miniatures. I've
True.
never met one. I've never met one.
Well, how cool is it to see a small version of something? I mean, it's just kind of
Right.
surreal, especially when you get a lot of detail.
Exactly.
And I think as Wolf as a professor also is one of his gifts. It sounds like to me, he doesn't have to love it and be obsessed with it to
Right.
really
To
recognize
appreciate it.
that it's powerful in you. And to be able to say that out loud, he probably knew how significant that was. Have you
Yeah.
ever talked to him or written
No,
him or
not about the miniatures. And frankly, like I said, I wasn't the star pupil for design. So I kind of was under the radar. I wasn't someone whose work was ever like, okay, well, Tammie did this. I did a mean color wheel. My best friend Elizabeth and I joke about the color wheel that we had to do that took you from white to black with 98 colors in between,
Ooh.
and we had to hand paint them. Like, really? But
Wow.
you gave you an appreciation for all the shades of gray. And that's kind of a metaphor, right? Because all of these shades of gray, that is what life is. And you get to decide. And sometimes people think we don't have the power to decide, but I think we do, what we want our lives to look like, what things we're going to touch, especially as artists. What influences us, but then what influence do we put back into the world? And I think that there's a
Mm.
responsibility, frankly, as an artist to put meaningful, wonderful, joyful work into the world. And I have yet to meet someone that doesn't like miniatures. So I feel like I'm living in my purpose when I put art into the world that is the stuff that speaks to me that fortunately also speaks to other people.
Love that. Yeah, that's a great message. And the shades of gray. I love that. That's brilliant. Okay. So you have graduated and you're not sure what you're going to do. What's the next step in Tammie's young adult life?
So I started a freelance business. I continued to work both at the dollhouse shop and at the framing gallery, but I left the framing gallery job to focus on working 3 or 4 days a week at the dollhouse shop. And we had some pretty famous clientele. One famous person whose name I will not say, but we did his daughter's dollhouse, and we delivered it to their very posh residence, where we got to hear him yelling and berating someone from the lobby of the
Oh.
entry. And we decided that we just wanted to drop off the dollhouse and leave. It was very sad, actually. I remember being very,
Mm.
but other people, so Dustin Hoffman, Tom Selleck came in, but he didn't buy anything. But we were just fangirling, losing our minds.
Oh, yeah. He's pretty great.
Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman. Barbara
Wow.
Streisand. I helped Barbara Streisand's assistant create a space for her with a baby grand piano. So yeah, it was like the celebrity of dollhouse shops, and
Mhm.
obviously very affluent and wealthy New Yorkers who were spending a small fortune on dollhouses for their kids. And I was one of the people trained to do electricity. So I was able to electrify the dollhouses and we'd help them choose the fixtures. And then we would do the dollhouses. And it was like a dream job to me. I said, it's too bad I can't just do this forever, that we get to decorate, put the floors, the wallpaper, all the trim, and even sometimes they wanted us to help them choose furniture. It was a dream job. But at that time, I also thought, let me try to exercise this design muscle, for Parsons. So I had a small, not successful, but fun business for a few years where I did business cards, shopping bags. I created something called a tissue box house, which I'll actually have to drag. I have one. I'll drag one out and
Oh,
show you. It's a really
that
pretty
sounds
house that
intriguing.
you put over a boutique tissue box and the tissue becomes the smoke. And I
Oh,
sold
cute.
maybe about 100 of them in a 2.5 year period. I sold a lot of them. So I shouldn't say it wasn't successful. It actually was kind of successful. And in fact, there's a photo of me in front of, I was probably, well, no, that was earlier. Gosh, that was like 17 or 18. So it was earlier. I was at a miniature show in New Jersey with my mom. It was my first show that I had done as a vendor. And there's a photo of me with mom. And I completely forgot that someone took that photo. And I absolutely love it. But yeah, so I dabbled in design and I thought, let me figure out what I want to do. I'm not going to work at the dollhouse shop forever. They don't want to keep me forever. And then something in my life changed and I ended up coming out west. I had a cousin living out here at the time. We were really close, and he said, "Well, come to New York." And I mean, come. He said, "You'll never leave New York, but come to California, come to San Francisco. You'll love it." And I said, "You know what? I've always kind of wanted to visit San Francisco." Okay, so I went, and 3 days in, I said, "I'm moving here," and he laughed. He's like, "You're not moving to San Francisco. You're such a New Yorker." I'm like, "Watch me. I'm kind of ready to leave New York. I don't know why. It's time to go." And I came here, but of course, I landed here in 1990, so there was a recession.
Okay,
It
a
was about
recession.
7 months after the big '89 earthquake, so there was a
Mhm.
lot of noise and things didn't feel very settled, and yet I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. And I got a few freelance jobs, but I thought I'm going to need a job that isn't an art job. So what am I gonna do? And I applied for a job as the receptionist at a law firm, and I got the job, and I loved the job. It was fun because I smile and I'm friendly, and I had to learn all the attorneys' names. And this law firm, I'm gonna date myself here, but LA Law. So this law firm was like the San Francisco version of LA Law.
Oh,
It was very progressive. It had maybe a third. I loved that show. About a third of the partners were female, which was very unusual because it was sort of a boys' club. Most of the law firms were it was all men, and I got to learn that because I was working for a law firm, and I was like, wow, we have like 7 female partners, and I don't know any other firm that has 7 female partners. But it was a fun and wonderful place to be while I did my thing. A lot of which was miniature making. So if someone had a birthday, an anniversary, a baby being born, especially then, word got out because they let me display my miniatures at my desk. So people
uh,
would see my miniatures and like, you made that? And oh, can I pay you to make it? So I was just making them all the
mhm.
time. Like I never stopped making them. Yeah.
That's so cool because I mean, some people, when they take that receptionist job and they get all, you're in the city, you're trying to make a living and all the things you love kind of, this happened to me, kind of goes out the window.
Yeah.
And to be able to incorporate it into your job and have people, I mean, what a gift. So you gave some pretty amazing gifts to people, which I'm sure endeared you to them as well in your office.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I had people commission things, and I had people and there were a few people that frankly I made them for them because I wanted to. Like, there was a
Yeah.
woman in the office who, she was head of the IT team, and I loved her, and when she got pregnant, I was like, "I'm gonna make her a baby room." So I surprised her with
Oh,
one, and she just lost it. So, yes, and some of it was commission, but frankly, a lot of it was either someone said, "Well, would you ever do that?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll do that," and then I would make it. And I remember at the time, my husband would say, "You're not getting paid to do that." And I said, "Yeah, I would do it even if I wasn't getting paid." It's like one of my favorite things to do. The fact that someone would pay me to do it, I think Chelsea Anderson said that when she was on the episode. She's like, "Wow, you're going to pay me to do something that I would do for free. In fact, I would pay you to let me do it." So the fact that I get to do it for free is kind of cool. Yeah,
totally cool. So your skills must have really been honing during that time. I mean,
I
you were
think they were.
learning, I mean, if you wanted to do a room, you had to learn how to do it.
How to do it, right, because
Uh-huh.
there were no YouTube videos, right? This is all pre that. So yeah, it was doing research. It was at the time I had a couple of subscriptions. There was a miniature magazine, and shame on me, I'm gonna remember and I'll tell you later, but I had a subscription to one of like the leading miniature magazine in the United States. And they would sometimes have little tutorials or pictures, but I was obsessed with the rooms of Brooke Tucker. So if you Google her, she was a big deal in the 80s and 90s, and people would wait long periods of time to get a custom room from her. So she kind of set the stage for that. And I thought, well, I want to be that, but maybe with my own sort of slant on it. And a lot of it was just trial and error. It was just try something. And the cool thing was no one was watching. So if
Mhm.
I did something and it didn't work out, it didn't work out. And it didn't bother me. It didn't feel like a failure. It felt like, okay, I'll try it differently next time. So it was
Yeah.
me learning and growing. And some things became very iterative and very repeatable, but some things were kind of a one-off thing that I would do something that I knew I'm probably never going to do it again, but let me nail it. So it was a lot of fun. It really was.
So your jobs continued you continued in that corporate world for quite a while, and I want to hear the ups and the downs and what served you and also what you were willing to let go of when it was time.
Oh, wow. Well, that's big. That's deep, Laura.
I just know the story. You guys, I cheated. I know the story before Tammie and I got on here.
I got on the CEO train, and it's funny because it was actually an attorney at the law firm that I worked at that said, you should, it was like out of nowhere, we're talking. He goes, you should work for CEOs. So it's like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't want to work for a CEO because it sounds like it's a lot of work. And, would I have time to work on my miniatures? I didn't say that to him, but I was
The
thinking,
main question.
I might
Yeah,
not.
that's a great interview question. Will I have time to work on my
But
miniatures?
frankly, as I began to realize that not only is it a wonderful thing to partner with a CEO, but you get paid well to do it. So I thought, okay, I can sort of start to figure out what that looks like. So each time I left a job, I went from being a receptionist to being a junior assistant and then an assistant and then several years as that, and then an executive assistant and then a senior executive assistant, then a CEO's assistant, and then ultimately a chief of staff. And sometimes the moves that I made were not they were not a step up. They were just on the same level, but it was because I knew that based on some research I did about the company or about the person I was working with, that I was going to learn. And I wanted to stay in learn mode. Like if I'm going to be in the corporate world, I'd rather be in the mini world, but if I'm going to be in the corporate world, I'm not going to be punching a clock 9 to 5, just a job that I don't care about.
Mm.
So I became very intentional about it and I kept working my way up and I had an incredible boss, and I'm going to say his name, Christopher Lord, who changed my life because he did things for me and with me that he I won't say he got in trouble, but you're not really supposed to do. So he was a VP at an investment firm, and I came to work for him. And he said, "You're bright." He goes, "What do you read?" And I told him, he goes, "Well, you should be reading, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal." And she was telling me what I should be reading. And he said, "And we'll talk about it. I'll give you things to read and we'll talk about it." I'm like,
Wow.
okay. And at one point, he wanted to bring me to a road show because they would go to road shows. And the managing director was like, "Yeah, you can't bring Tim to a road show. Like, don't do that. And don't talk to her about the road shows. That's not what we do." And I was like, well,
Wow.
he thought I should go. So he was trying to educate me behind the scenes. And he was the one that also said, he said, you could work for like the top person in a company, the president or the CEO. He goes, you have the people skills, you're bright. He goes, that's not something to like shy away from. And after I left him and I took some time off, I had a baby and I lots of starting things, stopping things, spent some time at home. And then when I got back into it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put my eye on that CEO thing. So my first job, which I won't mention, didn't work out well because it was more of a handler. This particular executive really needed someone to be at the front desk, but I wasn't working a whole lot. I kind of needed to be a presence, and that just wasn't what I wanted. And then my Sephora CEO David changed my life because he was demanding in the most wonderful way. And I recently read something. A former dear friend of mine, wrote a LinkedIn piece that said, "Raise your floor and then find someone to raise your ceiling." And I had never heard that. Isn't that
Ooh.
beautiful? I knew you'd like that.
Ah,
I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to send the piece to you. It was on LinkedIn last week.
that's
So I,
excellent.
I thought David raised my ceiling. He made me feel like no. He said the answer isn't no until you've worn out all other options, and it is no. There's always room for compromise and wiggle. Stand your ground if you think that you're right. Stay the course. Like he put all of these things into me, but he also needed me to be smart and to work quickly. And I mean, Sephora at that time the trajectory was incredible. Like under David, Sephora became a $1 billion company within
Mhm.
4 years. And I was with him during that ride. And we were busy. And fortunately, I had a husband who was at home keeping the home fires going because during the week it was intense. My days started early. I was on it was pre iPhone. I was on my Palm Trio
Oh.
getting messages early in the morning, Laura. I'm trying to get on Bart and get to work.
No.
Well, actually, Bart came later, trying to get on Muni and get to work. And I'm checking messages and I get in. And before I get there, there's stuff to take care of. And he walks in and I need to get him information quickly and clear the noise. So I became good at that. And I learned that, especially if you're working with a CEO, I don't need FaceTime with you. Like, I don't need to get in front of you and smile and be nice. I need to be efficient to make sure your time is efficient. I want to be pleasant about it and be warm and welcoming, but we're not best friends. I work for you and I'm a resource.
Was
That's who he
really
is.
lucky to have you. I feel sorry for whoever came after you. Good
No,
grief.
he had some great assistants after me, so I'm not going to act like I broke the mold, but it was a very special relationship to this day. We're very close. I spend my birthdays and times with him a couple of times a year, and I adore him. And he's been a champion. My son adores him, and he's very special to me. But from David, so I left that role because it became a little too much for me. I was doing the personal stuff and the work stuff, and it just became a little too much. While life at home was also really getting busy, the kids were getting a little older, and I thought I can't. So I left for a gig shortly, working for a beauty brand as a beauty ambassador, going to Sephora stores and Ulta stores doing makeup. And I loved it until
Oh,
I didn't.
wow.
Yeah, I did that for like 6 months, and I was like, no, don't want to do that. So then I took another job with another big beauty brand, Bare Minerals, Bare Essentials, and then Miles McCormick was another one who raised my ceiling. Like he was like, well, David had me doing lots of things, but I wasn't usually in. It was rare that I was in an executive team meeting. Miles put me in the meeting all the time. I was
Mhm.
always in the meeting. I was taking notes, and sometimes I wasn't taking notes. And we had this whole speak going on. Like, if he didn't want me to take notes, he would just look at me like, no, no notes. If he needed me to write something down, write that down. If he needed me to step out of the room, step out. We had a whole thing going. We would get together after a meeting and we would compare. Like I said, well, it looks like this needs follow up. Yes, you follow up with that. I mean, he gave me a lot of ownership, some level of autonomy that I would reach out to the executives about things. And this is what Miles needs. What are you working on? I was part of the 3-year planning. I mean, incredible access. All of these senior team offsites. I planned an amazing one in Half Moon Bay that everyone says was one of their favorites because we had bocce ball and Baileys.
Nice. I love Half Moon Bay. It's one of my favorites.
Ah,
That's a cool you thought of that? That's a cool concept.
the Ritz-Carlton. Well, I have thought of that. We can come back to that. But the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay was one of my favorite executive offsites ever. It was quite amazing.
I'm
So
so shocked at and amazed by you, Tammy Wolf, for many things, but I'm just thinking about you in the CEO world and being so on and so like a valuable asset to these folks running these big companies and being able to compartmentalize it and go home. I know that you probably didn't have a life at home because they were still contacting you, but you're raising a family, you're doing all these things. And then there's the artist side of you, your right brain,
yeah.
which is just firing on all cylinders. And even within your corporate world, it's firing on all cylinders. I mean, that is amazing to me that you can do both of those things. That is very unusual for an artist.
Well,
I
thank
mean,
you.
how many artists do you know would survive in a corporate world? And not only that, be like valuable and really loved in a corporate world. Do you know that many? I don't.
I don't know many, but to be honest, maybe because I'm in the Bay Area and there are a lot of people that have this side
Mm.
passion, but they do something else for a living. So more than you think. I've met a couple of people that have had a passion, whether it's singing or performance art, visual art, and they have a full-time gig because they can't afford to just be an artist. So it's not
Your area, you
completely
got to
rare.
have your day job a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that area for sure. That's so cool. So I want to hear about the Sephora build that you did
So
for your
David
boss.
was celebrating it. He was coming up on his fifth Sephora anniversary, and it was a big deal. And it was so funny. We would always have this battle over celebrating things because I would say to him, and it's funny, I got a lot of credit for being able to have frank conversations with him, always respectful. And he didn't want a fuss made over him. And it wasn't false modesty. He just wasn't the guy that wanted a lot of attention about things. Like if he's in front of us for a town hall, pay attention. But otherwise, he wasn't looking for that. But I felt like, well, you're the CEO and you deserve the special attention. I remember lecturing him once and saying, okay, well, we're having a birthday party and I'm sorry, I just need you to go downstairs and smile because you're the CEO, David. Not only are you not like everyone else, you aren't like anyone else. And people want to just wish you happy birthday. I will leave you alone for the rest of the day, but you're going downstairs at 3 o'clock. I'm going to smile and have cake. And I can do that. And he would go, okay.
Okay, Tammy.
So when this fifth anniversary was coming up, I thought I want to do something special. What do you get the person that has everything, right? He didn't want for anything. And I think what he wanted, he had, and what he didn't want, he didn't have. So he wasn't trying to have, things, just things. And I started thinking, I knew certain things about him, like he loved Paris. It's one of his favorite cities. He loved his dog. He loved certain kinds of food. He loved Krug. That was his favorite champagne.
Hmm.
I have to ask if it still is. It was at the time. So I thought, I'm going to create a scene that celebrates David and celebrates, this big 5-year Sephora anniversary. So it's a restaurant front, and I named the restaurant Le Grand Cinq, the big five, and there are tables, and his dog is underneath the table. And I remember David would always say to us, have respect for your competition. Don't dismiss them and don't underestimate them because they're coming for you. So I had other bags under there, not just Sephora, but iconic brands. I had a Williams Sonoma bag, and I'm trying to remember what else. I don't remember at the moment. Maybe Pottery Barn, but there were bags for brands and food on the table, like steak, some of his favorite foods. But my favorite thing was right next to it, there was a store, a wine shop, and they had Krug in the window. And they had a big sign that said 20% off Krug. And it was an inside joke because Krug never goes on sale. So that was our joke. David's like, "He thought that
Cute.
was funny."
Yeah.
But what was really fun was the reflection of the restaurant. You could see a Sephora, backwards. You could see, so in this
No
fictitious
way.
scene, there's a Sephora across the street, and he loved that. I think that was one of his favorite things.
Gosh, you're killing me with these details. That's so
It was so
fun.
fun. Yeah, and that's the thing, but that's the thing too, right? So for me, miniatures are to some degree not ever expected, but if you have a certain kind of scene, there's this expectation. Like if you what for a while it was the Victorian scenes and people were doing so many of those, and you kind of had an idea of what you were going to see if you looked in a Victorian scene.
Sure.
I wanted to create scenes that not only spoke to life, never people in my scenes, but activity that showed someone was there, but also an environment. And sometimes the environment could be suggested. I didn't have to lay out the whole thing. I could actually hint at it. So having that
Mhm.
reflection across, he just loved that. And people, it was a lot of fun. People they made a big deal out of it.
It is a big deal.
Yeah,
It's very cool. Okay, yeah, I wanna look at that one in detail.
yeah.
And tell us about the Tiffany, because your Tiffany build is just exquisite. Tell us
Oh,
about that. That's an interesting story.
thank you. Yeah, the Tiffany one. So I worked at a startup a few years, well, many years after Sephora. And I met a gentleman who's an attorney, and we got along really well. I really liked him, but it wasn't until literally 7 years after I left the startup that he reached out to me. And it was delightful. He reached out to me and said, "Oh, I see you're still doing your miniatures. Do you do commissions?" And it was before I had updated my website. So the website version that you see now, I've had that for 2 years, but back then it was a static image, and I had some things on there, and I hadn't really thought about how to market it and how to get my brand out there. So I was kind of low key. So I was delighted that he found me, and I said, "I absolutely do. What do you have in mind?" And he said, "Well, would you ever do like a custom shop?" And I said, "Well, what?" And he said, "Tiffany's." And I was like, I literally felt that. Well, I was like, "Did you just say Tiffany? Do you want me to do a major?" I said, "Yes. Yes. What do you have in mind?" And he said, "Well, you tell me. My wife loves Tiffany. She has a big birthday coming up, and we have gone to Tiffany stores all over the world. It's literally her favorite store." And he said, "So I was thinking maybe we could do like a window." And I said, "What if we do a shop?"
Mhm.
He said, "Like a shop?" And I said, "Yeah, like a Tiffany shop, like I can do a little store." And he
Yep.
said, "Oh, wow." He said, "Well, if you're gonna do a store, could you incorporate one of her Tiffany boxes? Like a life-size box?" And I said, so we arranged for him to come out to my home, and he bought me 2 of her big Tiffany boxes because, Tiffany doesn't just have jewelry. So and I tried to decide which one was gonna be the right size, and I stayed up, I'm not kidding. You can ask my daughter. I stayed up all night with these boxes, just
Oh, I
like
bet.
with ideas. And I wrote notes, but I don't sketch. So I didn't draw it. I just kept writing notes about, okay, well, that height works for that. And what if it's 2 levels? And what if it's like, just like, I was just thinking through it. I was so excited. And so was he. So I spent the next 7 months because I still had a full
Oh.
time job. And at the time, was still working for CEOs working on that project. He was so
Mm.
patient. He gave me a long leeway. And his wife's birthday was in October. I think I started it in February or so.
He was smart, he reached out to you early, that's good, at least he did that.
I know. And he said, "Add whatever you want, give me a budget for it, but think of what a real Tiffany store would be." And I thought, my favorite Tiffany store, other than the one in New York on Fifth Avenue, I don't think it's there anymore. Maybe it is, I don't remember. But there was one in Soho that I loved. And I said, "I know what I want the front to look like." And I sent him the picture. He said, "That's beautiful." He said, "You can do that?" I said, "I can
Oh,
do that.
yes.
I can do
Yes, I
that."
can.
So that became that was like my kicking off point. So I spent a week, maybe a week and a half, just working on the facade, getting the sizes right. And there was a gentleman, he sold stuff on eBay, and he made columns, and I wrote him and asked him if he could make this custom column for me, and building it up, and it was too short. So then I played around a lot before I ever started the build that would become the final build. In fact, I did one mock-up that I didn't like, and it was probably 40% done, and I trashed it and I started over.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Once I was on track with it and I thought about the floor and the feeling and the Tiffany paper, and I wanted to be so true to it and respect, what that brand is
Y
and how special it is. And I I was determined to do that, and I'm very excited that I did, with all of the artists that were not US based, with all of the products, the crystal, the leather purses, the
The
chandel
chandelier.
right, yeah, isn't
Oh,
it beautiful? So a lot of work and a lot of time, and it came together beautifully, and I remember when he saw it, he's like, "She's just" he came to pick it up for her the weekend before her birthday, and he's just looked at it, he said, "She's gonna lose her mind."
yeah. Did she? I bet she did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he said so she's so happy, she said it was one of her best and favorite gifts ever.
Because it's so personal and it's such a custom piece, and you are like a stickler about scale. So that I mean, that's really an important thing in a build like that,
Yeah,
when it's so beautifully done. I just love that. So you kinda had an idea that maybe it would be kind of a cool thing to advertise
and it
to
wasn't. So,
Tiffany's.
yeah, and he even thought, he said, "You know what? This is so cool, like, they're gonna love this, they're gonna want this on their social media," and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be known as the woman that made the Tiffany." So he reached out to his contact, and the person, I guess, reached out to marketing, and they said, "No, tell her
Oh,
no." And oh, I'm sorry, I left out an important part of the story. Before I started building it, I thought, "Well, maybe I should get permission to build it." And my best friend's like, "You don't need permission to build it. You're an artist, and you're not selling it as they didn't commission it, they didn't give you, like, you're gonna say this is their stuff, this is their copyright, the umbrella, all that stuff, Robin's Egg Blue, that's all Tiffany, but you're creating something as an artist, so you don't need their permission." But I thought, let me just ask. So it fell on deaf ears for 3 weeks. I never got a person. I got close to getting a person. I had about 4 conversations, couple of emails, never heard from anyone. So I just charged forward with it. And he thought that they would be really excited about it. Well, they have a department, and I think it's still New York based, that works on miniatures, that does the Tiffany windows. And they said, no,
ah,
she can put it on her social media, but she needs to keep it really quiet because no, we don't want it out there. And he said, it's incredible. Have you seen it? Like, it's not going to diminish the brand. He said, I think people would love it. They're like, yeah, no. So I was heartbroken because I thought it was going to be the project that like changed my life, and it did not. So thank you for
you know
celebrating
what?
me there.
It drew me to you because the last podcast I listened to you were on, you talked about this. And that
Great.
is kind of, yes. And that's what got me to go, who is this woman? Who is
Oh,
this Tammy
wow.
person? No, it's such a great, I mean, the fact that she will hold that forever and cherish that. And her kids will get that if they have children. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a family heirloom for sure. Okay. So you're working these corporate jobs and you have children and you're building on the side and you're doing all these things. Um, 2020 rolls around.
Yeah.
And as we all know, that was a really interesting time. And I'll just say what I started to see and what I personally experienced extra time, figured out miniatures, rediscovered them, so
Yeah.
excited,
Yeah.
posting. And I was retired. I was doing my photography, but I really just wanted to do this,
Yeah.
watching all these people online build their businesses, build these modern dollhouses, which was new to me. You are kind of feeling the opposite, and I
Right.
thought that was so interesting. Tell us about because 'cause you've been doing this for a while, longer than most of us who've been
Yes.
yeah.
So without giving myself away, I've been building and creating miniatures for about 45 years. Long time. Oh, COVID was an interesting time. Like, the world changed. The world as we knew it changed. And I had left a job, chief of staff, to an amazing gentleman who, it was a demanding job, and my mom's health was declining. And I thought, I can't I can't be on my iPhone all the time. I can't be queuing up a week in preview and reaching out to leadership teams on weekends. I'm not trying to have that life while my mother's life is changing and wrapping up, I believe. So I left that job. I took some time off. And then I thought, well, January came around. I said, well, I need a job. I need income. And I also want a job that is in that world, but I know I don't want to support a CEO. So that I knew right away that I wanted to not just spend time being able to be with mom, but be with my own family. And I just didn't want that job anymore. So I jumped into this role that was a temporary role for this large investment firm. And I thought, okay, this is a good way to get my feet wet and see if I like it. It's a temp role. Don't have to worry about it. 2 weeks in, COVID hits.
Oh,
And, the first announcement, which you think back to it, it's like, at first we didn't realize how big and how bad, right? It's like, okay, well, this is happening and things are going to start to shut down. And I remember the manager saying, well, the team really likes you and you can just take a laptop and work from home. It'd probably just be a few weeks up to a month. Well, we all know it was 2.5 years that we all stayed at home with not going to an office, which is like, you think about that, that blows your mind. Well, during that time, I had already, just as COVID was hitting, Adrian Octavius Walker and I were talking about the fact that he is an incredible photographer. And there's been, at the time especially, there was a lot of demand for his work. And some of the demand wasn't local. It's like, how do you hit all of those locations? And his wife made a comment sort of off the cuff, but I think she was half serious. Well, ask Tammy to make a miniature. And we laughed about it. And I was like, huh.
Because people couldn't go to his exhibit because of COVID, but they wanted to. She was saying, but they could look at a smaller version, right?
I'm like, okay, challenge on. So he didn't know that I was secretly working on that, and that I didn't present it to him until a little bit later, and he lost his mind, and that was so fun. But I remember those first few months thinking, well, I am fortunate to have something that I love to do, right? Because I know some people were like going crazy because you couldn't go anywhere, and they were like, what are they going to, especially if they lived alone. I had a family. My daughter was a junior in high school. She was taking class, from home. My son was in a program. I don't remember what he was taking classes from home. So we were here together all day. And when it was time to not be online, I was doing miniatures. And then I started to notice that all of a sudden, all these people were doing miniatures on Instagram and
Mm.
they were posting everything they did. So they were setting up
Oh,
the camera that showed, or they'd show 6 hours of working and then speed it up and show it. And I was like, oh my God. So believe it or not, I mean, Laura, I had a moment where I was crushed because I thought I missed the boat because I do the miniatures and I know I'm good at it, but I'm never going to be the person that does that.
you knew you didn't want to do the process videos. You knew that wasn't who you are.
My process has always been for me. Like the miniatures were for everyone else. I'm making the miniatures, and here's that magic moment where you see it and you're like, wow. But the process was not something that I actually ever really wanted to share with anyone. And
Uh,
suddenly, all people are doing is sharing their process. I'm like, this is going to be a problem. And I didn't talk about it. I mentioned it to my daughter, but I was really upset about it because I thought
mhm.
I'll continue to make miniatures. But for a little while, I stopped. I stopped making miniatures that just sort of were my thing to work on the side. And I thought I'll surprise Adrian in a few months and create a gallery for him. But otherwise, I wasn't working on anything because I was upset about the fact that I didn't feel like I was going to be able to be my authentic whole self.
What cracks me up is your museum, your gallery of his was like one of the coolest things you've ever made, and that launched a whole new thing. So you didn't even know
It did.
that that's where you were headed. I mean, to down to the occupancy thing on the wall, Tammie.
Right? Well, that's the thing. You
Your
and I talked about it, those
details.
details, right? So Adrian, so back to that, because you're right, that started a whole thing. So Adrian, he posted, or maybe I posted, I don't remember. I did a short video of the gallery, and my fictitious gallery it's right in front of the Met. And I did that for a few reasons. First of all, if anyone that knows New York, right across the street from the Met is residential. There are no shops. It's not like Fifth Avenue. But in my fictitious gallery, this gallery that is having this very important work about Black identity and by this Black artist is right across from the Met. So that was a little bit of a message there, sort of about acceptance and inclusivity and
Mm.
things being juxtaposed with one another that get people to think a little bit outside of how they normally think. So this beautiful photo that I purchased from iStock was, I guess, Yoko Ono donated these two huge banners to the Met during the pandemic because she was
Oh,
trying to sort of create a sense of people belong. Yeah, I don't know if you knew that. People belonging together. So this is the photo that's in the backdrop of my gallery. So I did a quick video for fun, just showing it. And it got posted. And a good friend of Adrian's said, when did you have a show in New York?
because it looked real.
And Adrian said, and it's miniature. And he was like, what? And he's like,
What?
yeah, she's a miniaturist. So he worked for Google. And then I guess he showed them and they said, we need to hire them, her and him. Let's hire them to create something for MLK Day. So
That's
in December of 2020 is when we started talking to them. And the project was due, I think, whatever MLK Day, like a week before MLK Day in January. And it was wonderful. It was a big deal. Like there was a crew here, not crew, there was a person, not a crew here filming my process, which I was okay with it for that. Because it wasn't a social media thing where it was about
it's like let's meet the artist is what it
right.
was.
Yeah. And they did a whole little clip about it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And if you go to the newsroom on my website, in the bottom, sort of the earlier work, there's the clip, which was really wonderful, has great music and very powerful.
I'll link that in the show notes because there's a lot of really cool stuff that was done on all of your projects. It's really well done. Your website's really good too, by
Yeah,
the way.
thank you.
So where that was like that launched the galleries, the micro galleries.
Absolutely. And it was validation, right? Because I mean, I knew that I liked it and that I thought it was important because it was emerging Black artists, because the artistry was unexpected. You're showing work. And I was really meticulous about scaling work down and being true to the scale and the size. So it was a whole thing going on in here, but I was proud of it. But then to have Google come to us and say, do it. So Adrian curated, and it was from Google Art and Cultures. It was from their archive. So they got all these photos, historic photos of Martin Luther King Jr. And
Uh,
they said to me, do your thing. And no parameters. I mean, none, Laura. How big
Oh,
is it going to be? What is the floor going to be?
you didn't need them.
But I was so excited to do that, and that was very special to me. And so then that got attention on other things. Sunday School Creative and Joseph Adamu and I decided to collaborate on Obasama, which was mind blowing. I did hair appointment first, and then he's like, "You should do Obasama." And Obasama is thousands of details, layers and layers. Another project, it was like the Tiffany project, but bigger, where I spent so much time just being obsessed about the smallest detail and about the vibe. And you talk about like
Hmm.
almost the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Tiffany, but then Obasam was this hair salon, black hair salon, and it was all about the details of that. And anyone that knows that space, I wanted anyone that saw it to say she nailed it. Like that's what that space looks like. That's what it feels like. Those are the colors. That's the wonderful messiness. That's the vibe. So I down the rabbit hole. That's one of my favorite projects also that I don't get to
Cool
do
one
that a lot.
too. I love that one. Speaking of ceilings, you don't have one because you tend to, I mean, the fact that you can jump around to all these different worlds, it basically because you go into these worlds when you build a miniature version of it, right? You immerse
I
yourself
do.
into it and you're very comfortable doing all of them. So that's really cool. So the teaching part is also something that you really love that you're good at. And I want to know kind of why you chose the library to do your workshops and
Yeah.
what your daughter, how your daughter is involved. It's such a cool thing. And darn if I didn't live in San Francisco, even just for a couple
I know
weeks.
I'd have to get you to a workshop. Maybe I'll have to figure out how to bring one to you.
I'm getting down there. No, I'm
Bring one
getting
to
down
you.
there.
So jump fast forward 3 years or so, and I was thinking about how I can start to feel the community. And it's weird because I was so connected to the art community in New York, and I've kind of gently touched it. I mean institution-wise, like I would go to the museums in San Francisco and in the Bay Area, but not immerse myself in them and not really feel connected to them in the same way. And I thought, okay, so COVID is, we're back in the world, but everyone's masked up. And what does it look like to be a part of a community? So I reached out to the curator at the Museum of Craft and Design, and she invited me in. She wanted me to take a tour and see the space. And as an artist, she said, "Well, I would love to show your work, but we're like 3 years out. So it'd be at least 3 years before you would have an
Hmm.
exhibition here." She said, "But I want you to talk to our director because maybe there's an opportunity for programming." So I met this incredible woman and she and I really connected. And I said, "I wonder if we could figure out a theme for a workshop." And she was like, "Workshop." And she said, "Well, go home and think about what that looks like." And I came home and I said to Genevieve, I said, "What if it was a space that like could pop up? Like when you think of a pop-up, it's temporary, but what if I could create something that was an art space?" And she's like, "Oh my God, Mom, that's really good." And because I don't sketch, I started cutting out foam core and started putting up little scenes. And I thought I had two little blocks and I cut one down. I was like, okay, that could be a really simplified version of a bench. And if I get canvas, like I just started thinking about it. And I sent it to her and she's like, that, that's genius.
That's it.
So she said,
Hmm.
so write it up. So what they do, if you are part of their programming, is they want you to write up what the idea is and then have visuals for it. So Genevieve, who's my favorite guinea pig, would do shots of her painting a canvas and still shots and video. And it was great. And they bought the idea and then they said, yes, let's do a workshop with that. Unproven, untested. I was like,
Oh, no, they do. Yeah. And it was great. It was great, was it not? The first one out of the hopper?
yeah, it sold out. We had a couple of extra people that we had to, and people loved it, and I
Yeah.
loved it. And I thought, I didn't know how much I would love watching other people create. So it wasn't just that, oh, it's my kit and they're making my kit. I gave them the base to be creative, to explore their creativity, not mine. And people were so into it, and it was so
This is
wonderful.
this is your kit. This is one of her
Yeah.
kits. And you can get these online. You sell
Well,
these
not yet, but they
kits.
will be available online next month.
So this is what you basically use.
A version of that. Right. So
And then they leave absolutely delighted with
and the
their
cool thing though
creation.
is the difference is that, and thank you for showing that. And I know you're excited about your kit, but if you attend a workshop, it's more than the kit, right? It's more than what's in the box because there's all this stuff that I would never be able to put into a kit. So there are all these textures and colors and big papers and things that there's clay. So we had in that workshop, one gentleman just did sculptures. It was so cool. So yeah, I absolutely
That
love it.
was his thing. And Genevieve, I would imagine both of you are walking around talking to people, walking them through their ideas, because a lot of times people need to process if they've never done it before. And that's the beauty of a workshop.
Well, but also Laura, that was the first workshop. So Genevieve wasn't helping me. She took the workshop. So she actually signed up for it. So
Oh,
Genevieve, my son, Gareth, and Genevieve's boyfriend, Robbie, they all attended and they took the workshop. So they didn't actually
got
take
it.
it all, which was really fun for them too, because they got a sense of what it is to
What
participate
does
in it.
mom do?
Yeah.
So cool. And you want her to help you in the future with other ones.
She's amazing. She's got the personality, and she's adorable and smart and friendly, and she's yeah, the workshops are
I
very
wonder where
special
she
when
got
she's a
that
part of
from.
it.
The library. Why the library?
So because of the partnership with MCD, apparently they reached out to me and they said, "How would you feel about, the response has been overwhelming. How would you feel about creating a version of the kit that we could put out with our partners?" So SFPL and Mobile Art, and they do a make art program, and that's like literally like a mobile, like a bus or whatever. It's like a van, and it'll go into certain neighborhoods and set up, and people can experience art. And mostly it's hands-on make art. And I said, yes, let's do that. So they invited me to the first one, which was at I can't remember which library branch it was at, but it was very successful. And we decided that it had legs, it was going to keep going. So for over a year, they were doing these mobile events. And then a woman that attended one of my workshops said, "Would you like to become an artist vendor for SFPL?" And I said, "Yes, I would. How do I do that?" And I put in the application, and she gave me tips on what sells and what doesn't. And I did. And next thing you know, it was just coming my way. They were reaching out to me for workshops. I was like, how cool is this? It was really pretty awesome.
And it's full circle because the library was super important to you as a
As I was
kid.
growing up, my mother, that was a big thing to her. Is like, I mean, we had our encyclopedias, Laura. We had
Oh yeah.
encyclopedias at home, but we were always going to the library because my mother wanted us to have access, and she wanted us to be readers, and she wanted us to be comfortable around books, and she wanted us to get out of the house and do something that wasn't just playing. So I went to the library. I grew up in the Bronx, and I went to the library probably at least 3 or 4 times a month. So to have it come back and be that I have programming with a library is incredibly special. I feel like it honors my mom.
No, it does. It honors your mom. It honors your history, your childhood. I
Yeah,
love it. So talk about your books and the dream,
the books.
which I also have here.
My sister says that's one of my favorites. So I should give you some context around Small Matters, a Hand in Miniature. So that's sort of a branding, marketing piece that I was giving to new clients to just say, this is what I do and hand in every one so that they could
Mm.
get the scale, which I know you enjoy. But my sister says my miniature empire. It's my books, it's the kids, it's all
Mhm.
these things that I'm doing. The books, I think the idea started years before I actually even printed a single one. I always thought it would be fun to have a miniature book that is big so that you can actually see the pictures in a bigger scale because they are miniature. And some of my favorite things, I love miniature food, but I don't make food because I really admire the people that have the skill and the talent to make food. So that
It's
book,
definitely a niche.
it celebrates food because I'm a foodie, but I also wanted to find great food, and I over the years have collected it. So I make miniatures, but I also have a very large collection of miniatures. I have a lot of food. I have a lot of food. So that book came because of that. Yeah, the books have been just an expression of wanting to continue to put the work out into the world. And if that's the way to do it, I'm going to do that. Yeah.
What other future dreams and plans?
So behind me are some of my coffee
Oh,
bars
yeah.
and little cafes. But I plan this, right. I've got to get my investor to launch these custom giftable line. So I think there is a demand for, and it's tricky, right? Because people have asked me, well, how do you feel about 3D printing and how it's a cheat because you can create all these things? I said, well, no, it's not a cheat. It's a tool that you can use as an artist to create. And for me, it's so funny. I thought about getting a 3D printer and then decided I don't want to be that close to that process. So I actually have
Mm.
a partner who makes the things. And once I get them, I paint them and I craft them and I do things with them. This, I'll show you, is a custom coffee bar that I made
Oh,
for my best friend. And it's all about the details and it's just ridiculous, like the amount of
oh
detail and things that are her favorite things and
oh my
kind that her favorite
goodness.
books and all of that is in there. So I have a basic model, but I basically take it and customize it so that it becomes more personal to the person that receiving it. And I do think there's a market for it. And even though I don't drink coffee, most people I know have some associate. They either love coffee, they have a friend or a spouse that loves coffee. So I feel like coffee is a really fun spot to sort of
Well, do you know what else? It's the third place, right? We have
right.
home, we have work, and then we have, think about how many TV shows. That's the third place. Frasier, Friends. I mean, it's the spot where we all gather. And even if you're not a coffee drinker, it's where you meet your people. It's where you go to
Exactly.
decompress. I think it has a huge cultural significance in our country, especially all over the world. I mean, they started it before we did. Think about
Right.
Parisians. They hang out, French are so great about hanging out, Italians and Spanish. So with these custom builds, so they would contact you and say, these are the details I want. Is that kind of what you're thinking, or?
So the idea is that there would already be a Lux model. So that's what you're buying, but then you can customize it. And the customization, I'm still figuring it out. Is it a little mug with the person's name on it? Is it a specific book? Is it a specific coffee? Like whatever those things are. And of course, the signage can be customized to the name of the person. And I've done several of
Right.
those already. So I think it has legs both for me to be the retailer, so it's direct to the consumer, but I also think there are specialty shops, especially in the Bay Area, that would love
Oh,
it. I would absolutely want
yes.
to carry them. And then there were themes bouncing around my head. Like I've done wine bars, but I was thinking, I need to take this show on the road and go up to wine country and go to
Oh,
Napa.
you're right there.
I know. One truth, I'm right here. And frankly, I can customize anything. So if they did want a space, if they wanted something more bespoke, more strictly unique to them, not something
Yeah.
that I can just alter, I can create it. So it just feels like
Yeah.
this is the right time to do that. It really does.
This is definitely, so you treat it like a job. You get up every day and you,
I work on miniatures every day, and I'm still doing the research and figuring out what tools are the ones that I really want to work with in terms of not tools, but materials. And I
yeah.
want to have a tool conversation with you because, like,
Tell me your favorite tools. What's on your table? What's on your table?
but here's the thing, and you told me that almost everyone, their first tool is the X-Acto. For me, it's the chopper. You know, the hand chopper? That is
Oh,
my favorite tool. Laura, I use that
really?
tool almost as much as I use an X-Acto because I build. So there are always small pieces of wood or wire or small pieces of metal, and I actually use that all the time. So I'm not saying I would give up my X-Acto, but it's right in there for me. It's like,
Do you have one of those little tiny saws?
but I don't like those. I've bought and returned two of them, and I decided there's something about them that the safety gauge makes me nervous, and I'm not interested in losing a finger.
I can't be trusted with that.
Right, me neither. I'm detail oriented, but I'd be the person to lose the tip of my finger. So I don't like that. So I have a chop saw. I have a life size saw and I like to miter on that. But if it's really fine wood, it won't do the job. But
Right.
I love tools. But my favorite tool is not necessarily the X-Acto.
Do you just have a giant drawer full of different sizes of trim pieces of wood? Do you just like,
Laura, it's bad. It's not a
oh,
giant drawer. It's boxes and boxes in our garage. And I have a work table in our garage. And the top two drawers of my Craftsman work table are wood pieces of every size that you can think of. And I don't throw anything away. I will say I'm not a hoarder, but I hoard wood because I know that I'm going to use it
you're going to
eventually.
need it?
And
Oh, that's not hoarding.
so I just say, thank you. I refuse to throw it away. So I do have a lot of wood scrap pieces. I have a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so amazing. So, okay, other lightning round things. Do you listen to music?
I listen to music and I love classical music. And it's funny, all through college it was Vivaldi. But then,
I grew up with Vivaldi, my dad playing it all the time.
right, four seasons, and I had like went in and out of which season I wanted to listen to, and that sort of I feel like that got me through college. But then I love Miles Davis. I mean, I have a lot of I love rock, I love soul, I love punk. I don't the probably only genre of music I'm not a huge fan of is country music. I don't not like it. I'm just not I don't lean into it. My sister loves it. But I do listen to music all the time and I go in and out of depending on what I'm working on. Sometimes I want just background. And then
Hmm.
sometimes I want music that I can dance to and work to and kind of sing along to. So it just depends. Yeah.
Major building or structure or anything in the world you would like to reproduce in miniature?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny because I thought about recreating the entryway of the Met. And I thought about this for years because it would
Oh,
take a year or two to make it. And I would get some
yes.
of the pieces cast, but I would do a lot of the work by hand. That is a
Oh,
fantasy. If someone wanted to hire me to do that, just putting it out there, I would be willing to do it, but it would be a big commitment, a lot
oh,
of time.
it needs to be under like a glass thing in the entry of the
Well,
Met.
you know what? In Notre Dame, when I visited, I want to say it was in 20, I don't remember, it was over 10 years ago. I visited Paris, my favorite city, one of my favorite cities. And they had, before the fire in Notre Dame, there was a model um, of Notre Dame. And I thought, that's to me, the people that do that, it's like it blows my
More
mind.
impressive than the building itself because you have to do it so
Because it's a
small.
small version of it, and you're like, how did they do that? How
Are
did they
you one
do
of
that?
those people where you're always looking for the miniature version? Like even if I go into like a hotel and they have the what they're building next,
Oh,
under giant pieces, I'm fascinated by that. I mean, I could look at that stuff all day
I
long.
am that person. And the Transamerica Building in San Francisco has a permanent exhibit that is some of the top architectural wonders in 124 scale, and they're all over the lobby. And it's one of my favorite places to visit because I'm just fascinated by taking something big and making it small like that.
Do you want your own show? Do you want your own gallery show of your
I would
miniatures?
love my own gallery show of miniatures. And it's funny what you do. I had a version of this in my mind like 20 years ago. It would be actually going to places, like going to different countries and finding the person that has a special miniature and sitting and talking with them and looking at their work. Like, it's a dream of mine to have my own miniature show, actually. Yeah, I would love
Yeah,
to
I
do that.
think you should. You've got enough work. Goodness, and it's so
You
eclectic,
have enough work.
Yeah. We just gotta find the venue. We just gotta find it. All right. And my last question, I'm so sad. We're almost done. My last question for you is, what did little Tammie love that grown-up Tammie gets to honor through this work?
Well, hey, it's the miniatures. And it's the fact that as a kid, I did feel like miniatures were really special. And I kind of knew that they were not only special to me. Like, I observed people, how they would respond to and interact with miniatures. And you would see someone who was a little older and maybe slightly curmudgeon-y, and they would lean in and you'd get that moment. And I'm like, the fact that I get that and I got to
Yep.
somehow make that part of my person and that I get to do that, Laura, I can't even tell you. It's kind of like a dream come true that I'm still a miniaturist. And frankly, I would do it whether I got paid or not. But the fact that I have gotten my skills to a place where I get paid to do it and I want to continue to get paid to do it is like, I think little Tammie would just be over the moon.
Oh, she'd be freaking out of the stuff. You imagine her looking at your Tiffany's build? Jeez. I mean, just really, yeah. I just want to honor everything that you've created. Speechless when I look at your work, and that's before I even knew you. And now that I know you, it's even more so. So this isn't the last conversation you and I are going to have for sure.
Wonderful. I love
So
it.
yeah, I will see you soon, at least in the next year for sure. And wish you all the luck in the world and just keep doing your thing, keep putting it out
Oh,
there, and the things that you need tend to show up. It's the same damn theme with all these people. You do the work and the opportunity shows up, you're prepared,
if
and
you
then
build it, they will come.
you get to meet the moment. Yeah. All of you guys. I mean, every person I've interviewed has been like that. They love it, they do the work, and then this cool thing shows up, and then you get to seize it by the horns and go, this is what we're doing. And
Yeah,
it's so funny that you had this moment in 2020 where you felt like you were left behind and defeated,
yeah.
and it ended up being the total opposite of what you needed to be
It ended
doing.
up being that pivotal moment. Yeah, my sister, there's a verse, your gifts will make space for you. And I believe that.
Yes.
I believe that if I continue to put it out there, it's going to continue to touch people and to blossom and to be something that brings me more joy than I can possibly ever say. So
And
thank
thanks
you
for
so
putting the
much.
joy back out. Thanks for putting it out there. Yeah.
Thank you for the work you're doing. I told you I love this podcast. I love
I'm
it.
having so much fun. It's one of the coolest things I've done in a long time. I get to talk to you guys.
Yay.
It's just a special block of people, you miniaturists. It
Thank
really is. All right. Well, go build. Go do your thing.
always.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye,
Thanks so much.
Tammy.
Take
Thank
care.
you. If you loved this episode, make sure you're subscribed on Apple or Spotify podcasts or the YouTube channel so you don't miss the stories and wisdom these incredible artists share. I'd love to see you inside my newsletter, Small by Design. On YouTube, just tap the link in the description. On Apple Podcasts, scroll to the bottom of the show notes. You can follow along on Instagram at Lara Blair Art Studio for my art and at Tiny World's Big Stories for podcast updates. If you're feeling generous, a 5-star rating helps other miniature fans find the show. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time in another tiny world with a big story.